Come, Ray. The one constant through all the years, Ray, has been baseball.
Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win. Now the 2-1. Line drive to the base. Just as the score of the tying run. Green to the plate. And he is safe. Safe at the plate. The Braves go to the World Series.
Had reserved seats somewhere along one of the baselines that sat when they were children and cheered their heroes.
Gibson swings and a fly ball to deep right field. This is going to be a home run. Unbelievable!
A 3-run home run for Bucky Dent. The Yankees now lead by a score of 3-2.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mazeroski has hit a 1-0 pitch over the left field fence at Ford Field to win the 1960 World Series.
They'll arrive at your door as innocent as children, longing for the past.
The Pope arrived at Yankee Stadium. As one enthusiastic announcer put it, he is standing on second base.
Reggie Jackson. Long drive right field. It is goodbye. Big World Series for Reggie.
The Blue Jays are World Series champions as Joe Carter hits a 3-run home run.
Back to throw. There's a left back. It's going to be, I believe, the Giants from the pennant. The Giants from the pennant. The Giants from the pennant.
The 0-1 pitch. A liner off Nagy's glove into center field. The Florida Marlins have won the World Series.
The memories will be so thick that I can brush them away from their faces.
The 1-0 delivery to Fisk. He swings, long drive, left field. If it stays fair, it's gone. Home run! The Red Sox win. And the series is...
Lolich fires, ball is hit high in the air. This should be the series. Freehand waving everybody away in foul territory. Detroit wins.
Here's the pitch to Willie. Here's a liner straight to Richardson. The ball game is over and the World Series is over. Willie McCovey hit it like a bullet. A line drive right
Baseball to mark the time.
The Oakland A's take.
I'll tell you what, we're having an earth.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Candlestick Park for Game 3 of the 1989 World Series.
It's been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again.
Frank Robinson, the right-hand batter.
long drive to left field. Way back. Gets it back. Home run.
Bases loaded, 1 out. Pena in a chance. The Twins are going to win the World Series. The Twins have won it.
Ozzie with 1 out. Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. It's a home run. And the
Willie Mays just brought this crowd to its feet with a catch, which must have been an optical illusion to a lot of people.
This field, this game, is a part of our past, Ray. It reminds us of all that once was good, and it could be again.
Broadcasted live.
Hey! Who wants to have some fun?
There are balls coming from all over the place. Left field, center field, right field. See, this is the kind of thing, quite honestly, right now, that makes you want to see the Chicago Cubs team lose.
Now, are you just saying you want to have fun, or do you really want to have fun?
It'll be fun.
Will the next person that sees anybody throw anything onto this field, point them out, or get them out of here. You don't live in Cleveland. You live in Cincinnati.
You talking to me? You talking to me?
That is the farthest thing in the universe from the truth.
Hello, everyone, live. It's the Dan Scott Show. And right there is your host, Dan Scott.
Right there, said Howard. Right there. Running late this morning, but we're right here. And welcome to the show. I'm Dan Scott. That's Forrest Stulting. I'd like to say that we're not this disorganized all the time. The problem is that usually we're able to get most of the disorganization out of the way before we ever come on.
Yeah, you just don't see it. So.
Yeah, we're running a little bit late this morning. How you doing?
Doing well, man. It was a fun evening last night down in Columbia for a few hours. So
That's right. You made the trip
down,
I did.
Didn't you? Yeah, it was a tough loss for the Pals, but we played well against a really good USC team. So nothing really to hang our heads about. So I think it's moving closer to the SoCon schedule and pushing forward for that.
First loss for Doug Allison's number 8 men's soccer team in the country. And now we get to talk some women's soccer. We're not ignoring the guy in between us here.
Yeah.
But,
we'll throw him in there eventually.
We're talking right over top of him. Andrew Burr, or as we were writing a moment, Andre.
One name only. Andre is all I need.
How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm very good.
Women's soccer here at Furman. It is a point in time where do you consider this a second season or the third season?
I feel like maybe second season. Let's go with second season.
Yeah, you don't count preseason camp as a season.
Yeah, this is really, I think, mentally more than anything else, it's nice having that. Non-conference season is over, and we get to assess and evaluate, and now we kind of start doing the heavy lifting as we take on our first Southern Conference opponent this weekend. And the way our schedule sets up is once we start SoCon play, it's Friday, Sunday through November and SoCon Championship. So we don't play any other teams other than Southern Conference teams for the second half.
Doug Allison's going to be happy to actually get on the field here at Stone Stadium a little bit.
I know. I got to help him with his scheduling, but I mean he's been on the road a lot. And we have been at home all the time, which we love. We love our stadium. We love our complex. Had a road trip this weekend. Went to Kennesaw State. Traveled down to Atlanta. Had a good result down there. You actually need to mix it up a little bit. And Doug and I talk about it some. If you play at home too many games in a row, you get in a little bit of a rut, a little bit of a pattern. You need to break it up sometimes. And I think he's feeling that a little bit now with being on the road so much with all the tournaments he was in. But yeah, having a balance of a couple home, a couple away really makes a lot of sense.
I have heard coaches talk, football coaches especially. I've heard Brett Harker, Ron Smith say it in the past, and Clay Hendricks just said it to me last week that sometimes getting on the road can be a good thing for an athlete or for a team because you get away from the, I don't want to use the word distractions of day-to-day campus life, but you get away from day-to-day campus life, and it just seems to, as strange as it may seem to the average fan, it kind of frees them up mentally a little bit.
Absolutely. I think we get into that mindset of, home field advantage, and we're talking about professional athletes in the comfort of their own home, etc. This is their life. These student athletes are here 24 hours a day, and there's a little bit of a relief when we have a road trip and we get on that bus and those doors close. Our players just relax and they can breathe and they can start to focus on the game versus, it's a Friday night game. We have kids with Friday afternoon classes. They're not able to do a pregame meal with us, and they're having to do some lab work, and then they're sprinting to the locker room to get ready for the game. And you're right. They're mentally they're really in a lot of different directions versus I'm on a bus, I'm on the road, I've got one focus, and it's kickoff at 7:00.
Want to talk about your last game at Kennesaw State. You had a really good result, as you said, and you're quoted in Jordan Caskey's story as saying, "Thought this was one of our best efforts of the year so far." Can you kind of explain why you thought that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're a good team. I think we've got some very good players. We've got some gifted, athletic players. And our problem has been, just like within any sport, it's those little mental lapses. It's that little 2-minute run where you just lose focus. The 2-minute run where you lose your mark or you don't get goal side and those are the types of things in our sport. I mean, there's a lot of 1-0 games. I mean, Doug's game last night, 1-0 to South Carolina. There are a lot of 1-0 games. So if we can eliminate those little 2-minute lapses where we keep focus for a full 90 minutes, good things happen for us. So I thought on Sunday was the first game of the year for us where we had 90 minutes, total focus. Everybody was ready. First 10, 15 minutes of the game, I don't think Kennesaw State crossed midfield.
Wow.
I mean, it was just dominant from the opening whistle for us. And so that's why I thought it was our best performance of the year, is just because of where we were mentally for a full 90 minutes. And I got to ask myself a little bit, and Dan started with this, but maybe it's because we were on the road and we were a little more focused, and we were on the bus, and we were able to talk about systems of play and our formation a little bit more than the helter-skelter that we get on campus.
I got to tell folks about something that happened right before we clicked the live button and went on. Forrest asked you about the quote, and your first response was, "Oh Lord, what did Jordan write now?" There's a funny story that Tim Burr, the longtime SID at Clemson, tells, going back to the Danny Ford days when Bob Bradley was still the sports information director, and there was a game or something, and Mr. Bradley wrote a release, and he had a quote from Danny in there, and Danny saw it, went to Mr. Bradley and said, "Hey, I didn't say this." And Mr. Bradley said, "I know, but that's what you should have said."
Man.
And he was probably the only person who could do that to Danny Ford back in those days. You and Jordan don't seem to have that.
No, we are good. We talk after every game, and I give him a nice quote. Now, I'm just a soccer coach, and he's kind of a wordsmith, so he says, "That sounded great, Coach, but what if I added a little bit of this?" And I'm like, "Yes, that's a great idea, Jordan." So he does a good job for us.
We don't want to give away all your secrets now.
Exactly.
So where is this team at this juncture of the season now as you're getting ready to head into conference play, in your estimation?
Yeah. I mean, 2 weeks ago I'd have said, "Ooh, we're in a little bit of trouble." And now I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, so much of what we do, and this is just for all student athletes, but I might say a little more even for female student athletes, is kind of where's the chemistry of this group? Where's the chemistry of the team? How do the players feel about each other? How do they feel about coach and coach's wife and coach's 3 kids? I mean, we're talking about some young ladies that kind of want that full picture, that full experience is a lot more than just what are we doing on the field. Mm-hmm. So right now I feel really good about the chemistry, and I think we're all on the same page. I think they're starting to see, wow, we actually have a really good team, and now that SoCon is about to start, they're thinking, hey, wait a second, we can actually win this. Preseason we were picked number 2 behind Sanford. Right now the RPI isn't great for us, but we're actually the highest RPI in the SoCon right now. I think Greensboro is after us, and then maybe Sanford after that. So I think they're kind of realizing that, hey, we actually have a really good opportunity here, and they're starting to gel and come around because of that.
Looking at the SoCon, Mercer has the best record so far with 6-4. Then the Citadel 5-3. Then y'all come at third with 4-2-1. Does anything kind of surprise you with this ledger right here with the teams in the non-conference schedule?
Yeah, I mean, the only one that surprised me a little bit is ETSU. They are very strong. They've got a great team. They lost to Sanford in the SoCon finals last year. They're a quality side. And so much of this is scheduling. So sure. You've got some teams that they're going to really try to schedule up and get some tough competition. So I think that's probably a little bit misleading with that right there, just because
ETSU at 2-6, by the way.
Yeah, they're not a 2-6 team. They are very strong. I mean, Sanford's the same way, and I mean they've got losses against, I think, Alabama and Georgia and Michigan State. I mean, they're playing some of the best teams in the country. So I don't mind looking at that, but I'm also thinking, let's fast forward, one weekend, and we got 2 games under our belt, and I think you'll kind of get a better feel for what the SoCon's going to look like this year.
In American sports, we have become accustomed to scoring. In the game of football, in fact, rules have been changed over the last 25 years or so to increase scoring at both the collegiate level and the National Football League level. And in soccer, I think it's very, very telling. You've lost 2 and tied 1, and statistically you're giving up less than a goal a game. That really emphasizes to me the premium on goals in this game. You're at 0.95, and you've lost 2 and tied 1.
Yep. And I think over those lost 2 and tied 1, and I don't know the exact stats, but I think we probably had, I think the shot count for us was maybe 75 for those 3 games total, and we gave up maybe 8 shots. So I mean, it's a silly game. It's crazy that a team can outshoot 75-8 and still lose 2 and tie 1. That makes no sense. I think in any other sport, if you see a football team dominate the possession of play, or in basketball, if one team is shooting 3 times as often as the other, I mean, you know who's going to win that game.
Right.
In soccer, not the case.
Yeah, it's like getting into the red zone 75 times compared to 8 for the other team in football, and still finding a way to lose.
Exactly.
Or tie.
Yep.
As we said. We talked about the makeup of your team in earlier conversations as the season was getting underway. As we head into the conference portion of the season. Now, talk about that chemistry which you referenced. Talk about the leadership that you're getting. Is that where you want it to be?
Yeah, no, I think it is. So we've got a group of seniors, quite a few that are starting, and they're really right in the middle of what we're doing. We've got 3 seniors that are starting at center mid for us right now: Sanan Williams, Jenny Allen, and Rachel Shaw. So I don't want to. I get a little nervous when I start thinking about the future, because they are so dominant right now, and that's going to be tough to replace those 3. But I think we're getting really good leadership, and I think we're all getting on the same page. But what's changed kind of from when we talked, earlier in the season to now is, some of these new personalities, some of the freshmen and sophomores that we're still trying to figure things out, they are starting to figure things out. We've got Treva Acock and Kate Riley that are playing up top together. Holy mackerel, those 2 are a handful. So we started with those 2 up top on Sunday with Molly Dwyer, our other senior. Molly scored the 2 goals against Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State coach Benji, great guy, good friend. I mean, he was just shaking his head after the game and said, holy mackerel, I do not want to have to play against 3 kids like that again. It's not fun for us to play against those types of players. And those players they're blue collar, they work hard, they're dynamic, they have energy, they have engines that just don't stop. So we're seeing some players, and I mentioned Kate and Trevor just because they're a little bit younger, that are starting to figure out and what's my role versus, hey, let me kind of blend in and see what happens. They're saying, hey, get on my back, here's how we win games. And that's been really nice to see with this roster.
And then kind of circling back to getting them on the road at Kennesaw, it was really not really, it was, except for the exhibition game. It's your only opportunity to get them on the road. So for the freshmen, that was a new experience, and you were at least able to get that out of the way so they know what to expect travel-wise when you go to Mercer on the 29th, when you go to the Citadel on the 1st.
Macon, Georgia. We're going to Macon?
Yes.
Oh, no. I'm just kidding.
Which is not the end of the world, but you can see it from there.
I grew up in Atlanta, and I'm very fond of Macon. But you're right. This is going to sound stupid, but we've got to practice how to travel. I know that sounds silly, but you got to practice what it's like to make sure you remember all your gear, and what does the rooming situation look like, and what time is pregame meal, and what time do I go to sleep? Do I just watch Netflix all night? Do I do homework all night? You got to practice these things. So you're right. Going on the road makes a big difference before the SoCon season starts.
Allie Cutler, she kind of made her first really strong game and goal last game against Kennesaw State. Can you talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a great battle going on right now with that goalkeeping spot. Kelsey Weaver has started most of the games. Allie has started the last 2 or 3. Sarah Rinker is injured, so we really got a goalkeeping rotation of 2, and it's anybody's spot right now, which I love. I'm not sure if I think they like it too. I mean, we talk about competition and the types of student athletes we're trying to recruit. I want to recruit competitive kids.
Absolutely.
And that's where some of the competition really starts is, hey, I know you're my best friend, and I know we're teammates, I know we like each other, but I'm going to beat you out today. I'm going to be better than you today. So it's a great battle that we have right now. Allie did well. I think Allie does a really good job of being a vocal leader. And as you can imagine, as a goalkeeper, we kind of talk to our group about, hey, you're the goalkeeper. You can see the entire field. You got your back 4 in front of you. You can see everything. You see things happen before they actually happen. Share that with us. Be a good communicator. Be nice and vocal. And she really brings that, which I think creates an increase in confidence with our players.
How typical is it for a team to have 2 goalkeepers kind of go in and out like that?
I mean, if you would have asked me that when I first started this job 20 years ago, I would say never. I mean, it's you got your one goalkeeper and you stick with it, and it's that consistency. I think on the men's side, that's still very, very true. I think in the women's game, you can move it around a little bit. There are a lot of teams that we play against, and they've got 2 goalkeepers, and they split, and they do a first half and a second half. And there might be times where there's a goalkeeper that we're playing a team that's really direct. There are going to be a lot of services, and we have a goalkeeper that comes out better on crosses, for example. So we're going to pick and choose, obviously, depending on who we're going to play. But it actually is fairly common now to see two goalkeepers getting playing time in the same game.
Is the hesitancy on some coaches to do it akin to the hesitancy of football coaches to play two quarterbacks?
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, you never would have seen that in football 10 years ago, but now you see is it running play? Is it a passing play? I mean, you see a lot more of that now, don't you? And you never would have seen that in the past, I don't think. So I think that's probably true. On the men's side, and this is kind of the era that I grew up in, but once upon a time, you had 11 jerseys in the locker room, and they were numbered by position. So if you're number 1, you're the goalkeeper. If you're number 2, you're the right back, 3 center back. And so you got your jersey, and you're playing for 90 minutes. And there's no need for subs. There's no need to other people to warm up. If you were in the starting 11, you played for your 90 minutes. And that mentality has certainly changed. And as players get maybe more athletic, more dynamic, and maybe even some shorter bursts of stuff, you're seeing a lot more rapid substitutions in the college games. But way back when Doug Allison was growing up in England, that's the way the English style was. That was it. That was probably in the 40s or 50s. I'll ask Doug later, but it was a long time
that
ago.
late, yeah.
Back he's so old he played in black and white, right?
Yes, he did.
Nice. All right, before we wrap it up, into conference play head first. 2 games, both at home this weekend. Friday night against VMI, and then Sunday afternoon against Greensboro. Talk about those games.
It'll be a good start for us. I'm happy that we're at home. VMI is a very difficult place to play, and it's a long trip, so I'm excited about having them come here. So our travel partner is Wofford, so Greensboro will play Wofford on Friday night, then we'll switch opponents on Sunday. VMI, man, they are disciplined, they are organized, they are hard workers. That program has come a long ways, literally in 2 years. They had a coaching change 2 years ago, and it's just it's amazing. So I mean that was a game that several years ago in the conference you would never say this out loud, but as a coach you'd say, all right, this is going to be okay. Let's start thinking about Sunday. Friday's going to be fine. It's not the case anymore, and that's just the strength of the SoCon now is so high that there's not a single team now that we just say, it's not going to be a problem. So they'll be very disciplined. We just got to be patient and break them down. We got to finish our chances. We can't have a game where we outshoot them 30-4 and somehow don't score a goal. So I think the effort we had against Kennesaw State, I think if we do that again, we'll be fine. Greensboro on Sunday will be a massive test, and they're a good team. A little bit different than VMI in that VMI has made huge strides in the last 2 years. Greensboro has been good for 20 years. And really, you look at kind of the strength of the Southern Conference over 20 years and all the SoCon championships. It's kind of Greensboro and Furman, the 2 teams you think about. So those are 2 huge battles for us. I'm thrilled we're at home, and hopefully a lot of people will come out. But yeah, we're excited to hopefully go 2-0 and start this SoCon run.
All right, Stone Stadium, 7 o'clock on Friday night, 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, right?
That is correct.
And then you start actually having to play some games on the road.
I know.
In conference.
I'll see if I can figure this out. Going to Macon. You can go with me to Macon if you want.
No, trust me. I'll be. Let's see. I've got Mercer comes here for football, but we'll be going there for basketball. Yep. We'll be going there for baseball this year. So I've got 4 games I have to do there as opposed to your 1.
That's enough.
You want to trade?
No, I'm okay. I'm okay. I will tell Bobby Lamb that you said hello, though.
Yeah, please do. Andrew, thank you, man.
Great. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
That is Andrew Burr, the women's soccer coach here. As we get set to go to break, I'll remind you that the show is brought to you each and every day by our friends at the Atlanta Bread Company. Was there again this morning for breakfast. Got a chance to chat for a bit with Jeff Massey, the owner. He's having computer issues, and I'm having computer issues, and both of us are just dinosaurs talking about the new age of technology. But we did it over some great food and some fantastic coffee. People there are fantastic, as Andrew knows. The folks at the Atlanta Bread Company are top shelf. So go see them. Thank them for supporting this program and helping us have a foundation to build off of. And as we go to break, here's a little more about the Atlanta Bread Company. We'll be back. Dave Glenn, ACC Sports Journal, joins us on the other side. Stay with us. The Atlanta Bread Company wants to make your dining experience as convenient as possible, especially if you're ordering takeout. Go online to atlantabreadcompany.com, place your order there, and pay for it too. Then, when you get to the restaurant at Cherrydale Point, you breeze right by the cash registers and go straight to the pickup counter where your food will be waiting. And speaking of food, try the new Shrimp Po' Boy, a delicious and surprisingly healthy addition to the already great menu. That's the Atlanta Bread Company, Cherrydale Point in Greenville.
Looking for a good lunch spot in the Travelers Rest area? The Cafe at Williams Hardware is your place. Williams Hardware has food for the whole family, from the famous Reuben to the barbecue chicken quesadilla and their daily lunch specials, which includes the award-winning BLT unpimiented cheese with pepper jelly, served Tuesday to Thursday. Williams Hardware also serves breakfast on Saturdays from 8 to 11, perfect before Furman home game. And don't forget the gift shop, which offers items for anyone on your list. Go see your friends at the Cafe at Williams Hardware, 13 South Main Street in downtown TR. Full menu and operating hours at the Cafe at WilliamsHardware.com.
Say you've got a busted phone or tablet screen. Time to get a new device? Nope. Time to give it CPR. CPR Cell Phone Repair at Cherrydale can repair almost any phone or tablet screen on the market and usually can do it same day. In fact, if you have an iPhone, the fix usually takes less than an hour. CPO Cell Phone Repair also can fix computers and gaming systems, both screens and hard drives. And they sell refurbished devices and new accessories. Stop by and see the new owner, Janet Culver, today, and check them out on Facebook. That's CPR Cell Phone Repair at Cherrydale, 864-282-9097. Give it CPR today.
Stuck in a state of falling behind? Struggling to keep up with your kids, finances, insurance? Then let State Farm agent Steve Borkland in Travelers Rest help you simplify and get to a better state. Because with Steve handling your auto, home, and life insurance, you'll have more time for everything else. More money, too, because adding State Farm policies could mean earning discounts worth up to 40%. That's money Steve can help you put towards a college savings plan. Call State Farm agent Steve Borkland today and get to a better state with State Farm.
All right, welcome back to the show. Our thanks to Andrew Burr, the women's soccer coach here at Furman, for spending some time with us today. And again, they have home games Friday at 7 against VMI and at 2 o'clock on Sunday against Greensboro, both conference games. There are two conference openers here for 2017. As we get back into play, we are going to the aptly named celebrity guest line and welcoming in our Wednesday guest to talk all things Atlantic Coast Conference. He is the chief cook and bottle washer at ACCSports.com and host of the aptly titled David Glenn Show all across the state of North Carolina. He is, ironically enough, Dave Glenn, joining us here on the program this morning. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Dan. Always fun to be with you.
Yeah, it'd be kind of interesting if you were named something else hosting the Dave Glenn Show, but that worked out pretty well, I would imagine.
Yep, so far so good. And it's funny, everybody calls me Dave who knows me well. And the main reason we went with David Glenn Show instead of Dave Glenn Show is that after years of calling hotels and making reservations or restaurants and making reservations, I found that if you say Dave Glenn too quickly, it just sounds like you sneezed and they have no idea what you just said and they ask you to repeat yourself. But if you force yourself to slow down and say David Glenn, they never get the hotel or restaurant reservation wrong. So we figured we hope people will remember the name of our show in a good way. So that's why we went with the more formal David Glenn Show. Little piece of useless trivia for you there right out of the gate.
I've got one that goes right along with that. When people would ask me my name in those situations or what's the first name, I would say it's Dan. And they would say, okay, Stan, thank you very much. So no, Dan, D-A-N. I had to take the spelling in.
Well, I forget how often you and I have mentioned this in our decades together, but quick sideline. My wife's late father had a famous line that he used for decades as she was growing up, and it was never trust a guy with two first names. So, of course, she ends up marrying David Glenn, who is now visiting with Dan Scott. So
oh boy.
You and I were both on the hit list. I hope there's no truth to that theory of my wife's late father, because you and I would both be in big trouble if there is.
Well, what would he have said about a guy with 3 first names? Because my middle name is George. I'm named after my dad. So.
Oh man.
And my middle name is Raymond, which is my dad's first name. So you and I are in triple trouble together. At least we get to go down together, right?
No question about it.
Plot thickens.
Hey, looking at the ACC, I mean, that is why we've got you on the show. Is there any doubt right now, anyway, 3 weeks into the season, about who sits at the top of the power rankings in the conference?
No doubt about it. Now, I don't think it's just safe to assume that Clemson is going to roll through everybody remaining on the Tigers' schedule. But I agree that there's no real debate about who belongs at the top. The defensively dominating performance against a top 15 Auburn team, followed by, I saw the final score, I watched the whole game, but 47-21 does not fully explain what the Tigers did to Lamar Jackson in Louisville. That was a 33-7 game on the road against that quarterback and that offensive mastermind, Bobby Petrino. If you can hold that team to 7 points in their own stadium in that set of circumstances, you have a chance to be a legendary defense. And they've already obviously made strides in that direction. But that 3-0 start couldn't have been much more dominating. And whether you like, Virginia Tech or Miami in the Coastal, or whether you still like Florida State or somebody else in the Atlantic, those are dangerous teams. And, a couple of them are still on the Tigers' schedule. But it starts with Clemson, and we knew they'd be good. They look even better than most of us thought.
The Lamar Jackson thing, and I want to talk about he and specifically Bobby Petrino. Going into the fourth quarter, I think he only had 171 yards of total offense, and the score was 33-7 or 33-12.
Yep.
And then Petrino leaves him in as Clemson starts going 2 and 3 deep into its defensive unit, and he pads his stats. Why is Petrino leaving him in a game like that and risking getting him hurt? Is he that vain about his offensive reputation that he's willing to sacrifice the health of his quarterback?
Well, he's not a guy whose personal decisions and ethical and moral decisions are such that anybody would prop them up as great examples for the youth of the future. I'm sure he's been asked that question. I can't recall his specific answer. But I remember this, the Charlotte 49ers program based here in our backyard opened against Louisville last year. And that final score, I'd have to double check it, but it was something like 70-14 or something like that. 7-0 for Louisville. And obviously Bobby Petrino ended up getting rewarded for leaving Lamar Jackson in so frequently, so long in games decided sometimes before halftime, no exaggeration. And it led to a Heisman Trophy winning season for Lamar Jackson. It led to the Cardinals being in the national top 10 for the bulk of last season. And it led to that program getting millions of dollars of free positive publicity before the crash at the end of the regular season and then the loss in the bowl game. So I don't think you and I are wrong to ask those questions. But I think part of Bobby Petrino's answers would be doing it my way brought a lot of good things to the Louisville football brand. And, at least part of that is beyond debate.
It is, among all the storylines in the ACC right now, where would you rank the play of Kelly Bryant?
I think it's toward the top because we all know that we don't live in a world where 1 through 14 all get the same amount of attention, nor should they. Mm-hmm. So anything going on with the starting quarterback at the number 1 team in the power rankings might be a bigger headline than anything in the bottom the bottom 7 schools combined, right? Kelly Bryant's evolution, the dominance of not only Dexter Lawrence and guy like Christian Wilkins, who we knew would be great, but also that entire front 4 for the Clemson defense. Kelly Bryant being asked to handle a more complicated job description against Louisville. Even though it turned out to be that dominant performance, you couldn't have known going in. You couldn't have assumed that, hey, handing the ball off, avoiding mistakes, making plays with your feet and letting your Clemson defense beat up Auburn, there was a low likelihood that conservative approach would be enough to beat Louisville on the road. Now, the way it unfolded, maybe it would have been, but Kelly Bryant's poise on the road in a harassing environment on national TV, to me, was way more impressive than him leading an offense that scored 14 points to beat Auburn at home the previous week. And he's had 3 years to study that playbook or more. He's learned by the side of Deshaun Watson, who just gave him a nice Twitter shout out. He'll be better than I was. I don't know about that, Deshaun. But Kelly Bryant has 3 or 4 running backs helping him. Deion Kane and Hunter Renfrow and other good targets in the passing game. And when you combine all of that with that just off-the-charts defense of Brett Venables, yeah, all that stuff matters. Just like every detail matters at places like Clemson, Florida State, Virginia Tech, and Miami, because in all likelihood, those are the 4 schools that are going to determine who plays whom in the ACC title game, and the ACC champion is probably going to come from one of those 4.
Hey, Dave, Forrest here. Outside of the Louisville-Clemson game last week, there weren't too many good matchups. So we're going to kind of move forward to looking at this weekend. You got 2, in my opinion, you want to highlight. Duke travels to North Carolina, and then NC State goes down to Tallahassee to face the Seminoles. Can you talk about those 2 matchups going into this weekend?
Yeah, I'll tell you what's interesting about Duke Carolina. I've covered that rivalry for 30 years, and this is one of the first times. It's not the first, but I can't remember picking Duke to beat Carolina in football more than 2 or 3 times in the last 30 years. When I first started covering the ACC, Duke had a head coach named Steve Spurrier. And the Tar Heels were in rebuilding mode under a guy named Mac Brown. And I remember way back then, it was crystal clear that Duke football was better than Carolina football, right at the end of the 1980s. Since then, and, obviously there's a lot of numbers to back this up, from 1990 through 2011, when the Tar Heels and the Blue Devils played each other in football, it was 21 wins for Carolina and 1 for Duke in a 22-year stretch. That is about as lopsided as you will ever see a rivalry within a Power 5 conference on the gridiron. So obviously a lot of those picks of Carolina over Duke were correct. I really believe Duke is the better football team this year. And after that crazy stretch of Carolina dominance over, more than 2 decades, David Cutcliffe has actually won 3 of the last 5 in this rivalry. And even with the game in Chapel Hill this weekend, I just think the Blue Devils are the more well-rounded team. They have a very good returning starter in quarterback Daniel Jones. They have a defense that has been very impressive. They beat Power 5 teams in Week 2 and Week 3, Northwestern of the Big Ten and Baylor of the Big 12. Neither of them is a power this year. I mean, Baylor lost at home to Liberty, but the dominating nature of what Duke did defensively in those wins was as impressive as the wins themselves. The Tar Heels have a lot of problems on defense. They're getting better on offense despite the loss of a lot of talent to the NFL. So maybe Larry Fedora's, offensive mastermind status will come through for Carolina. But I don't remember the feeling very often. Duke has a better depth chart than Carolina in football. And yet I believe that is the case going into that game this week. And with Florida State, I think Florida State's the better team. They've beaten the Wolfpack 8 of the last 10. The only time they've lost in that stretch, the game was in Raleigh. And this year it's in Tallahassee. The big question, of course, is what will James Blackman look like as a first-time starting quarterback? This guy's about 170 pounds or so. He was going to a senior prom 6 months ago, maybe. He's talented, and he's tall, and he has weapons, and Florida State has NFL talent all over its depth chart. But Ryan Finley of NC State is a proven quarterback, and James Blackman of Florida State is not until he shows us otherwise. So that's the biggest little wrinkle to follow, even if most of us agree that the Seminoles depth chart is better than the Wolfpack depth chart.
We are visiting, as we always do on Wednesdays, with Dave Glenn of ACCSports.com and the syndicated David Glenn Show from all around the state of North Carolina. He has been a guest on my program going back to the early days, somewhere starting around 2002 or 2003, and I'm like a bad cold. He just can't shake me. No matter where I go, he ends up maybe I can't shake him.
There it is. Yeah.
No matter where I go, there he is. You look at what's going on in this conference right now, and shifting over to the Coastal Division a minute. We really don't know much, if anything, about Miami because they haven't been able to play. So right now, is it safe to say that Virginia Tech has probably done the most to impress on that side of the conference?
Yes, and I do think they're the two most talented, Miami and Virginia Tech. But you're absolutely right, Dan. Thanks to Hurricane Irma, all we have from the Miami Hurricanes is the season opening win against Bethune-Cookman of the FCS ranks. And I'm not even sure you would have called that, a truly dominating win. It was 41-13 on the scoreboard. Mm-hmm. But the Miami defense, and especially the Miami front seven, is supposed to be truly off the charts, potentially dominant. Maybe not to the Clemson level, but close to that. And I'm not sure it was that against Bethune-Cookman. Then they have a cancellation of a road trip to Arkansas State, which is a good team in the Sun Belt Conference. And then they had the pushed game, postponed at Florida State to early October. So, next up is Toledo. And I don't know a whole lot about the Toledo Rockets, but I'll be watching that Miami front seven, especially because if they are going to win, they're going to need Malik Rozier, their veteran but new quarterback, in for the departed Brad Kaya, to have a Kelly Bryant-style evolution to go along with that Miami front seven, which I'm convinced is going to be really, really good. For the Canes to challenge the Hokies in the Coastal, they need Rozier to build on. I think he had one career start prior to this season. Mm-hmm. They need him to be that Kelly Bryant story for them, the way Kelly Bryant obviously has a whole lot of people smiling in Death Valley these days.
To Virginia Tech, on your website, one of the teaser headlines for the Hokies is Josh Jackson is doing stuff at Virginia Tech that no quarterback has done before, including Mike Vick. Now, I know you want people to pay to click that, but can you give us at least a little bit of an indication of what we're talking about here? What has he done that Michael Vick didn't do?
Yeah. Well, he is the rare freshman starting quarterback for the Hokies. That hasn't happened very often. He's a redshirt, so he had all of last year to learn Justin Fuente's system before he was plugged in. When, remember, Gerard Evans surprised a lot of people by leaving Tech after only 1 year and turning pro early, only to be, undrafted and basically dismissed by most of the NFL. That would have been an interesting picture had he stayed. But it's a combination of being very good in that national spotlight game against what was then a top 25 West Virginia team to open the season. And then I was actually there in Greenville, North Carolina this past weekend. ECU is not good this year. And yet ECU got their home crowd into it by taking a 17-7 lead in the first quarter over Virginia Tech. And if there's any time to hit the panic button, it's when you're down double digits early against a team that you're supposed to not only beat but thrash, as the home crowd is getting into it and you're hearing it from the opposing fans on the sidelines, and you're a redshirt freshman, and at least the West Virginia game was a neutral site rather than a true road game. In that environment, and I witnessed it. There was no panic on the Virginia Tech sideline from Justin Fuente. There were adjustments made by the legendary defensive coordinator, Bud Foster. But most importantly, there was no panic at all from the redshirt freshman quarterback, Josh Jackson. And it went from 17-7 ECU to the Hokies scoring 57 consecutive points. Silencing, obviously, the crowd there at Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium in Greenville. So it's part maturing quickly. It's part run-pass balance. It's part being that rare starter on a list with Michael Vick way back in the day as a freshman quarterback for the Hokies. So there's a little bit of a lot of things in that article. But the good news for Virginia Tech is they're not only 3-0. They shut out Delaware. They beat ECU 64-17. and they beat what I think is a pretty good West Virginia team by a touchdown up in Landover in week 1.
Wake Forest, they are 3-0 this year. They've beaten Presbyterian, BC, and Utah State. They travel to Boone this weekend to face App State. How for real are the Demon Deacons, Dave?
I think they're for real in terms of a second straight bowl under Dave Clawson. But it's almost like the difference between in our state, we discussed Duke and Carolina in one context because they're in the Coastal Division, and in many years there's nobody to be afraid of in the Coastal.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas we end up having to discuss Wake and NC State in a different context. If Wake were in the Coastal, I really believe there's a chance that Wake could battle to be the second or third best team in that division. Because they're in the Atlantic, no, they're not as good as Clemson, of course.
Mm-hmm.
No, they're not as good as Florida State. I don't think they're as good as either Louisville or NC State either.
Wow.
And that's 4 games on your schedule.
Yeah.
So they're the best of Dave Clawson's 4 teams at Wake Forest. They're going to be a second straight bowl team. They've won 3 straight. I'm actually going to the mountains and going to be there in Boone as Wake and App State. They're only about 90 minutes apart, but they went from playing almost every year in the old days to not playing at all, despite being 90 minutes apart by car. App has never hosted Wake Forest until this Saturday. And App is the best program in the Sun Belt Conference, arguably. So it might be the biggest test of Wake Forest, even though, as you said, Forrest, that the Deacs have already beaten Boston College at BC.
Mm-hmm.
Presbyterian and Utah State were not huge challenges.
Sure.
BC is a bottom-tier team in the ACC this year, I think. So App State, especially on the road, I think this is their biggest challenge, but it's also the best team that Wake Forest has had under Dave Clawson. They're better in the trenches. John Wolford, their quarterback, said 3 years ago when we played Utah State, I could barely move my body because I was beaten up. He didn't want to insult his offensive line of 3 years ago, but now he's a senior. And he said, I'm not sure I need my jersey washed this time. And that's the difference in the 3-year evolution from year 1 to now year 4 under Dave Clawson. They still have to deal with road trips to Clemson and Notre Dame. They still have to deal with home games against Florida State and Louisville. You can't expect them to win any of those 4, but I think they're capable of beating anybody else on their schedule.
All right, David, take a moment to tell everybody how they can find out more about what you're doing, where you're doing it, and all of those good things.
Yeah, best place to go, Dan, remains accsports.com. We have our quarterly glossy magazine that continues to be a great hot seller. We also have bi-weekly newsletters available. You can find the information, password-protected subscriptions, but also a lot of free stuff at the website, accsports.com. And for those who are into social media, you can follow us at both at ACC Sports on Twitter and at David Glenn Show on Twitter. We have a lot of fun with ACC stuff there as well.
Sounds good, my friend. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, boys. Take care. Good to be with you.
Thanks, Dave.
That is Dave Glenn, ACCSports.com, and the David Glenn Show. All right, when we return, quickly.
Yeah,
real quickly.
Rapidly.
Get into Forrest's 3 things and see what else we can do inside the final segment. Dan Scott Show. Before we go, just a reminder about our friends at the cell phone repair place, CPR Cell Phone Repair. As a matter of fact, located in Cherrydale Plaza. They do phone repairs of all kinds. I have an iPhone. They got mine done in about 30 minutes. They say they can do an iPhone in an hour, but they obviously got mine done a little more quickly than that. And then other brands, other makes, they can do almost any kind of phone or tablet you have and usually get it done same day. They also do computers and gaming systems, and not just the screens. They can take care of the hard drives for you as well. They sell new and used, they sell refurbished phones and tablets. They sell new accessories for any phone and tablet. New owner Janet Culver wants you to stop by and see her, and you can also check out their Facebook page. That is CPR Cell Phone Repair in Cherrydale. You see the number on the screen, 282-9097. All right, now, off to break, and we'll return after this. Forrest 3 things coming up. This is the Dan Scott Show. Back in a moment.
Looking for a good lunch spot in the Travelers Rest area? The Cafe at Williams Hardware is your place. Williams Hardware has food for the whole family, from the famous Reuben to the barbecue chicken quesadilla and their daily lunch specials, which includes the award-winning BLT unpimiented cheese with pepper jelly, served Tuesday to Thursday. Williams Hardware also serves breakfast on Saturdays from 8 to 11, perfect before Furman home game. And don't forget their gift shop, which offers items for anyone on your list. Go see your friends at the Cafe at Williams Hardware, 13 South Main Street in downtown TR. Full menu and operating hours at the Cafe at WilliamsHardware.com.
Say you've got a busted phone or tablet screen. Time to get a new device? Nope. Time to give it CPR. CPR Cell Phone Repair at Cherrydale can repair almost any phone or tablet screen on the market and usually can do it same day. In fact, if you have an iPhone, the fix usually takes less than an hour. CPO Cell Phone Repair also can fix computers and gaming systems, both screens and hard drives. And they sell refurbished devices and new accessories. Stop by and see the new owner, Janet Culver, today and check them out on Facebook. That's CPR Cell Phone Repair at Cherrydale, 864-282-9097. Give it CPR today.
Hey Furman fans, it's baseball season. Here at Ingalls, we know that as you root for the home team, sometimes you want more than just peanuts and Cracker Jack. And while we do deliver on your favorite ballpark classics, we're proud to offer a packed lineup of everything you need to make your next meal a home run. Ingalls, a proud sponsor of Furman Baseball and the official grocery store of Furman Athletics. Go Dins!
The Atlanta Bread Company at Cherrydale Point offers a dining experience that will have you coming back for more time and time again. Everything is freshly made on site, including the different varieties of bread and all the baked goodies. And the menu, Atlanta Bread Company offers a wide variety from hot soups and chili to hot and cold sandwiches and paninis. Even breakfast selections topped off with your choice of piping hot coffees. Come see for yourself. You'll love it. The Atlanta Bread Company at Cherrydale Point, proud sponsors of the Furman Paladins and the Dan Scott Show. All right, we are back. I tell you what, man, it just seems like the entire day, the entire show have been chasing it.
Yeah.
Because I literally walked in the door here about 6 minutes before we went on the air, but for good reason. And I knew I could because we had those two interviews right at the top, but still getting all the technology set up that's not quite become second nature yet. I still have to think about things, and
that's always a tough thing to do. Think about things.
You know, one of the absolute truths about baseball also spills over into life. You don't think, son. You can only hurt the team. You know, so
fair.
Yeah.
In most instances, that is the truth.
Yeah, that, and it seems like I heard the other line I heard a lot was "happens to the best of us," and son, you ain't the best of us. But, you know, it's another story for another time.
That's the way that goes.
Yeah, quickly before we get to Forest Three Things, a word about Hall's Chop House, the Greenville Steakhouse downtown. Look, folks, the steak speaks for themselves. They are just absolutely fantastic. They're tender, they're juicy. You're going to love it. Only top quality cuts of meat. The rest of the menu outstanding as well. They have a convenient location for you downtown. They have meeting rooms available for your Christmas parties that are coming up. You have corporate get-togethers. You have private parties of any kind. They've got room for you. They've got a menu that will just knock your socks off. A lot more about them coming and maybe even getting together and doing some live stuff down there. That's Hall's Chop House, the Greenville Steakhouse downtown. And stop there and tell them you heard about them here on the show. All right, 8 minutes until the top of the hour. Three quick things.
Yeah, first I'm going to just give the trivia question since we have a few minutes so people can mull on that for a minute. The topic is Paladin football. Which Paladin kicker has scored the most points in the game, and how many points did he score? We'll let that marinate for a minute and see what
most
answers.
Points in a kicker has scored the most points in a single game.
In a single game.
And how many was that single game? Now, if you think about it, just to put it into context.
Sure, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Grayson Adkins scored 10 points this week. That was 3 field goals and
an extra point. Correct.
So you just have to kind of think about that in context. How many points is a kicker scoring in a blowout? if they're all touchdowns, let's say Furman had scored 7 touchdowns and won 49-0.
It's 7 points.
He would have only scored 7 points.
Yeah.
So there's a little context to this when you're thinking about that.
It was a trick question in a way.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
All right.
Thing 1. Beth Mowins made her NFL debut Monday night. She was the first woman to do play-by-play for a Monday Night Football game. And the first time in 30 years that a woman has been the play-by-play announcer, and since Gail Sirens in 1987. Mowins has been calling college football games since 2005, and she was the second woman to do so, be the play-by-play announcer in college football. And she's also scheduled to call a game in Week 3 in the NFL. So I guess this is one of the few bright spots the NFL can hang their hat on, is in terms of getting diversity in the booth. What do you I know they have a plethora of Southern reporters that are women, but getting them in the booth is the hardest part, it seems.
Well, if she's good enough to be there, then she should be there. I particularly don't care who it is that's doing the play-by-play. I just want them to be competent. Actually, I want them to be more than competent, but at the very least, I want them to be competent. I want them to present the game in a way that is informational and somewhat entertaining, but not over the top. And
it's also asked there, Dan.
It is. But there are
no, fair enough. I completely agree.
There are the good ones out there who do it. I don't care if it's a man or a woman.
Yeah,
that's what I want. I think it's great. I have 2 daughters. If that's the path they chose, I would want them to get the opportunity to do that if it arose. I remember the Gail Sirens back in '87. So, 30 years is a long time.
It is.
Between opportunities. I'll tell you what is even stranger and more rare. 1980, I want to say either 83 or maybe it was 84, NBC did a Jets-Dolphin game without announcers.
I remember that. And that
You weren't born.
All right. Well, I remember hearing about it. Excuse me. Yeah, and it seemed that it didn't really work out as well as they planned. It seemed. Is that correct? Or
they only tried it once.
Sure. So I guess that's the answer. So,
but they did an announcerless broadcast, and did it with the graphics and everything they had available in the early and mid 1980s. But but back to the point. If she's good, more power to her. When she's doing college football, and there have been others other women who've done college football on ESPN, and I have seen and I've heard, and when I was at the Clemson station, I took phone calls from people who didn't want them on there because we need a man calling the game. Whatever.
Yeah.
If she can do a good job, then I don't have any problem with it. And I'll be honest with you, most of the time, I got the sound down and I'm listening to the radio anyway.
Fair enough. So, yeah, it's just
or
all preference right there, essentially.
Or my wife is watching something on television and I'm watching the game on my iPad with no sound.
Mm-hmm.
So, But
so Dan, you are just in the dark no matter what. Is what it sounds like.
Pretty much. That's where I spend most of my life. But we do get to listen to a lot. We listen to some games on the radio, coming back as
Absolutely.
we did from NC State, and try to get a flavor for what other announcers and other networks are doing. And I know there's a machoism to football.
Yep.
If Beth Mowins can do a good job, I don't care if she's in the booth or not. Let her do it.
No, I'm right there with you, Dan. So just good for her. Hope this kind of continues on for years to come. Thing 2.
Here's the other thing, though.
Oh, please.
I don't want her in the booth just because she's a woman.
Oh, for sure. But I think she's been doing college football games for 12 years. So I think
that's my point.
Okay, sure.
She's got a track record. I don't want somebody in there just because they're female or because they're a minority. If that's the best person for the job, that's who needs to be in there.
Yeah.
And they don't need to be kept out because they're a woman or because they're a minority. But at the same time, I don't want somebody in there in any job just because of
this or that.
Yeah, I want them there because they are qualified and are the best person to do that job.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
Fair enough. Thing 2. The downward spiral of the Auburn football team continues. Shaun White was dismissed after being arrested for public intoxication early Sunday morning. He was serving a 2-game suspension for an undisclosed reason, and he started 16 games between 2015 and 16. So he was a decent quarterback for the Auburn Tigers the past few years, but he lost his starting job to Stidham at the end of last year. And another player, Byron Cowart, has requested to leave Auburn as well, citing playing time and health reasons that his mom is dealing with right now for leaving. And he was a former #1 recruit in 2015. He played in every game as a freshman and appeared in 10 games as a sophomore. So he's just not liking what's going down in Auburn right now and has requested to leave. So the Gus Malzahn train is slowly coming to a halt, it seems.
But I'll say this: I don't think you can say it's coming to a halt because of two players.
No, I think it's just adding on to what's already happened down there. Essentially.
Yeah, they are having issues. They are having offensive issues for a guy who is proclaimed to be by a lot of people, and maybe even himself, but by a lot of people, an offensive genius. But I'll give him credit for this. If Shaun White was in trouble already for something, and then during that suspension he did something else, kicking him off the team.
Yeah,
then more power.
That's the case for sure. Yeah,
then that's good. And we don't know what the 2-game suspension was for, but I have seen plenty of coaches who were handling it internally. We'll add another game to his suspension, or yada yada yada.
Yeah,
whatever the circumstances are, he's gone. So.
Yeah, fair enough. Moving right along. Thing 3, the single-season total home run mark for all teams and players combined was broken last night. The previous mark set back in 2000, the height of the steroid era, was 5,963. Alex Presley of the Tigers tied the mark, and then a few moments later, Alex Gordon broke it for the Royals. And here's some numbers to how many home runs are being hit this year. There's about 1.26 home runs per team, which translate into 2.52 home runs per game, which also breaks a previous record set back in 2000 of 1.17 per team and 2.34 per game. So as we've seen the entire year and even discussed on the show numerous times, the home run is ever so prevalent in Major League Baseball.
And fans love it.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no question about that. Chicks dig the long ball.
That's a common occurrence.
As we have heard. The other side of that, too, is we don't have the stats, but I would hazard to say that strikeouts are up. And there's a story that I saw the headline on. I didn't get a chance to read it this morning, but a story I saw the headline on, I think it was from Buster Olney, but I can't from ESPN, but I can't say that 100% for sure. But the basic crux of the story was, why are so many hitters who are having bad seasons still hitting home runs? And you can see Joey Gallo is a guy that comes to mind.
He's got more home runs and singles this year.
Yeah. Aaron Judge's second half of the season as compared to the first half, but you see a lot. Joey Gallo, I think, is kind of a guy whose name pops to mind, and it brings back some guys from a few years back, guys like Russell Branyan, guys like Rob Deere, going even further back, Dave Kingman, Adam Dunn to a certain extent.
Yep.
I mean, there are those guys, although Adam Dunn got on base a lot more than most of those guys did. But still, there are a large number of players today who are going to end up hitting, or already have hit 30 home runs in a season, and they're having lousy years at the plate.
There's a record number of players hit a home run or hit 20 home runs this year. I believe the old record was 137, and right now there's 153 bats that have reached at least 15 home runs, and only 149 of those have totaled enough plate appearances to qualify for the 2 league batting titles. So, just players are hitting a lot of home runs, and as you can see, in few plate appearances as well. So
a lot of home runs and a lot of strikeouts.
Yeah, and as you said, Dan, there's 8.25 strikeouts per game on the batter side, and then that's up from last year's total of 8.03. And just go back to 2010, 7.06.
So it's
7.06.
So it's jumped on an average of 1 per game per team. So
yeah.
two per team. So you go to a game now and you're going to see an average of 16 strikeouts between the two teams.
Mm-hmm.
There's another story I saw today about Max Scherzer. He's going to become one of the few pitchers to strike out 250 or more batters in 5 consecutive seasons. And the question is, why is he doing that? Well, number one, he's a great pitcher. And number two, strikeouts are up.
Yeah.
So the combination of the two, he's doing what he's doing at the right time. But anyway.
And the 8.25 is strikeouts per game, not per team. So
okay.
The average is
per
8
game. I got you.
I got you.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of games you're still going to go see 16 strikeouts.
Oh, you're absolutely correct about that. There's no doubt.
All right, cool. All right, what's the trivia question answer there, Mr. Forrest?
Can I just say a couple on this dates real quick, too?
Well, certainly. You can do it either before or after the trivia answer.
I'm going to do it after, give people a few more seconds to mull it over the trivia question. In 1907, Nick Maddox of the Pirates no-hits the Brooklyn Superbas. Superbas, excuse me. And he is the youngest to do so, and he still is, of 20 years and 10 months. So the youngest pitcher to throw a no-hitter has not been eclipsed in over 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
In 1968, Mickey Mantle hits his final home run. He hits 536 on this date. In 1998, the great Cal Ripken Jr.'s streak comes in, and he pulls himself out of the lineup and ends his streak at 2,632 consecutive games played. And then in 2002, Mike Bordick of the Orioles sets an MLB record for a shortstop with his 102nd inning without an error.
Nice. You know, there's one that I'm surprised it's not on there.
What's that?
I saw this yesterday, because it would have been yesterday's on this date.
Okay.
But you didn't have it yesterday either. Yesterday was
excuse me, it's 102 games, not innings.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, yesterday was the anniversary of a no-hitter thrown by a pitcher named Joe Cowley in 1986. And it turns out that was his last major league win. He went 0-2 the remainder of that season with the White Sox, was traded to the Phillies in the offseason.
Yep.
Started off 0-4 with an ERA of about almost 14, and they released him, and he never won another major league game. So his last major league win was a no-hitter, and he's the only pitcher in major league history to have his last major league win as a no-hitter.
That's incredible. Wish I would have seen that. But that's some unfathomable stuff there, Dan. You don't see that too often, as you said.
I try.
So every now and then you get one. So
every now and then. That's right.
All right.
I are a journalist. All right, trivia question answer. Most points by a kicker for the Paladins in a single game.
Yep.
The consensus among the guests seems to be Ray Early.
And they are all correct, Dan. He had 20 points against Western Carolina in 2013. He had 6 field goals made and 2 extra points.
Yep,
So,
and I remember that game well because I had laryngitis and was home and did not call it. Chuck Hushin called it in my stead. It was at Cullowhee, and it was confounding because we couldn't get enough, couldn't score touchdowns, but thankfully Ray's big leg was enough, and that was a win in that stretch where the Paladins won 6 of their last 7, and on the Fieldhouse building down off to our left, that 2013 is the last Southern Conference championship they've been able to put up. So we'll see, maybe get Grayson Atkins tuned up to 20 or 21 and
we'll
see if history repeats itself.
I'd rather score touchdowns, but
you and me both.
But if he does that, more power to him.
You and me both, my friend. All right, that is going to wrap it up, right?
That's all I got.
Are we done?
That's
Okay.
all I got. Yeah.
If that's all you got, then we're finished. We'll be back with you tomorrow, same time, same place. If all goes according to plan, Doug Allison will be with us tomorrow to talk Furman men's soccer, coming off of their first loss of the 2017 season last night in Columbia, 1-0 to the Gamecocks. And then you'll want to be with us on Friday because not only will Scott Keeler be here, tune in anyway, but in the segment before Scott Keeler at 10:25, we will visit with the play-by-play voice of the Colgate Raiders to further preview Furman and Colgate on Saturday in Hamilton, New York.
Good stuff.
So we'll do all that. Until then, our thanks to Andrew Burr for joining us on the show in the opening segment, Dave Glenn in the middle. For Forrest, I'm Dan saying God bless you. So long, everybody.